Remember, Democrats love crossover appeal, okay? What they perceive as crossover appeal, which Tucker Carlson may or may not have in this moment, is enough for Democrats to not actually shit on Tucker Carlson with anywhere near the same the same severity as they shit on someone like myself, right? Like, a lot of centrist Democrats both align with some of Tucker Carlson's. I think it makes sense if people who self-ID as MAGA still continue to self-ID as MAGA, but perhaps a lot of people who self-ID as Republican are no longer self-identifying as Republican. Or they're just a fucking psychotic cult, right? There's not much to analyze about base MAGA. They're just a personality cult. Trump could call feces his favorite dinner, and these people would eat it for free. It's true. A lot of people, especially on the left, put a lot of stock in seeing this man as a cipher for what MAGA believed, and as a glimpse into its future, should be reevaluating things, to say the very least. This is about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, who saw a 47 point dip in his approvals because as Trump crushed Tucker Carlson's audience changed. So, like, this is important. This is important to identify because it kind of corresponds to my theory, right? What I've been saying about Tucker Carlson is that he no longer actually is the MAGA whisperer necessarily, but he actually has been able to generate a lot of excitement and a lot of new eyeballs from independents, people that are not American, that are not being polled, and Democrats, those on the left, non-voters. I think that is what Tucker Carlson is winning big in. Trump's approval will crash once he's a lame duck. The distance he's creating for himself now will pay off later. I agree. I think Tucker Carlson is positioning himself like this for the future, either for a future run where he runs for presidency, or a future where he can take the credibility that he has now established as an anti-Zionist, as an anti-Israel guy, anti-war guy, and he certainly has that credibility now, for the record, and lend that credibility to whichever candidate he thinks will best advance his base desires, white nativism, and things like that. So even if he himself doesn't run for president, he could absolutely take the credibility that he has and lend it to a J.D. Vance, for example. There's a lot of delusion among MAGA about just how unpopular he is. Once they lose the House and Senate, he has no chance of staying influential or power. It'll be over. That's what happened with Bush.
You tried to persuade Donald Trump not to go to war with Iran. You met him 3 times in the run-up to February the 28th, and you spoke to him on the phone multiple times. Donald Trump now says because of this action that he has taken, the US and the American people are safer. Is he wrong?
Well, of course, that's an absurd statement. He doesn't believe it, I don't think. No, of course not. I mean, we were told after the 12-day war in June that the United States had eliminated Iran's nuclear program, and then we were told in February that somehow that nuclear program had not only been resurrected, but it had been paired with ICBMs.
You don't think the stink of Iraq won't follow him? Fuck no. No. If it followed him, it would follow him currently. As I already said, he has established credibility as the anti-war voice in the country. He is one of the most prominent anti-war voices in this country right now. I would say a lot more prominent than your boy, okay? Because at the end of the day, mainstream media also loves people who were already in mainstream media. So Tucker Carlson has that backing. A lot of people don't remember that far back anyway, but Tucker Carlson is probably one of the most prominent anti-war, one of the most prominent critics of Israel in this country right now.
That could threaten continental United States. I mean, the whole thing is a fantasy. The United States went to war in Iran in order to effect regime change, to throw out the people who ran the country and collapse it at the behest and then the demand of Israel. And that,
remember, Democrats love crossover appeal, okay? What they perceive as crossover appeal, which Tucker Carlson may or may not have in this moment, is enough for Democrats to not actually shit on Tucker Carlson with anywhere near the same the same severity as they shit on someone like myself, right? Like a lot of centrist Democrats both align with some of Tucker Carlson's ridiculous worldview, ridiculous attitudes around the economy. They see him as a mainstream figure with crossover appeal. He might not have that crossover appeal right now, but he probably will later down the line when the Republicans are forced to reckon with how devastating this war was. They shit on him for criticizing Israel, but I'm telling you, it's the Republicans that shit on him. It's the Republicans that fucking attack him first and foremost. But overall, I think he gets less abuse from centrist Democrats. Like maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Jake Tapper and Dana Bash have done extensive panels on Tucker Carlson's anti-Semitism. They've done it for Nick Fuentes, but I don't think they've done it for Tucker Carlson.
That's a demand the Israelis have made of the U.S. government for decades, and President Trump.
What would you say who the most prominent anti-Israel critic is? It's probably Tucker Carlson right now in the country. I'm up there too, for sure, but I think it's Tucker Carlson.
Trump fell for it, did it. And I think he recognized immediately that it was a mistake and that it's very hard to extricate yourself from a war like this once it has begun. And I think the net effect, and the president himself has said this, is at best.
You say Candace, but I think Candace's motion is like a little bit base boosted by bots. I would say it's probably Tucker Carlson. Out of like the political commentariat, I would say Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, myself. Yeah, I don't know who else. I mean, I guess like Nick Fuentes too. Unfortunately, I mean, notice something about the top critics of Israel. Yeah. Mehdi Hasan as well, for sure.
To leave the regime in place, give that regime control over commodities that flow through the strait.
But for the Breaking Points crew as well, for every like Breaking Points, Mehdi Hasan, myself, there is like 8 Republicans. Like there's a Dave Smith, right? There's a Tucker Carlson, there's a Candace Owens, there's a Nick Fuentes. Like there are a lot. What, you think Candace is boosted and not Nick? Oh, I think Nick is boosted too. I don't think Tucker Carlson is boosted. I think Tucker Carlson has legitimate developing nations in his audience. Like I think he's got the Ummah on his side. That's what I think is like boosting his visibility a lot.
It's at the eastern end of the Persian Gulf. In effect, to make Iran much more powerful than it was on February 27th, the day before the war began.
On that subject of being more powerful, I mean, you will know that the president has said, because
you were at the Zoran rally today. We might be at Zoran's 100-day rally, but we still got to clock in. Nice. Don't let New York Post hear this. They'll write a hit piece on me and Zoran. Spiritually at the Zoran rally. President has said 13% truthfulness rate. I love that. I love that stat. Sneeko is another prominent critic of Israel. A lot of those like the weird like manosphere guys are those I would consider to be prominent critics of Israel as well.
because of me, Iran will now.
Did you watch the Newsman segment on you? They said you are fundamentally evil to the core. You mean Newsmax? Would you go on the Sean Ryan show? Absolutely. Absolutely, I would.
Never have a
But I'm not an operator, so I don't know. I don't know why they would have me on. You know what I mean?
nuclear weapon. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and we will dig up and remove all the deeply buried nuclear dust. Pete Hegseth said epic fury has decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You don't believe that? They're lying?
Well, of course, it's not true. And it also reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of...
Why is the fucking BBC anchor defending CENTCOM? Like at a time when the British state's position on Trump is that he's awful, the British government is weirdly just leaning into the CENTCOM statements coming in, and they're just like, what do you think they're lying?
Iran's power.
Yes.
Iran is not primarily a military power, though it's turned out to be much more effective than anyone thought. Iran is an economic power. Iran has the power to halt a critical supply chain, maybe the single most critical supply chain in the global economy, which is shipping out of the Persian Gulf. And it retains that power because of its geography. And it's always had that power. It just hasn't exercised it until now. And so not understanding that allows you to enter into an engagement like this with the belief that you can beat them, sink their navy, destroy their air force, degrade their missile capacity, and you will somehow won. But of course, the opposite is true. There is no way out at this point from that fundamental reality. If the United States were to eliminate the central government in Tehran, it wouldn't open the strait. The strait could be closed by piracy. In fact, you need a central government in Tehran to keep the strait open. And we know that from the Houthis, who were able to close the Red Sea. And years, many years of war with the Gulf states, briefly with the United States, have not ended the Houthis' ability to close access to the Red Sea. They have it as of right now. So this is an asymmetrical problem. It doesn't matter how many aircraft carriers you have. You still can't prevent other people, your enemies in this case, from closing shipping lanes. It can be done with mines. Like this whole thing, this whole problem is very easy to understand, and you would have to be either not very bright or under immense pressure from another country in order to start a war like this. And the latter is true. We did this because of pressure from Israel. Now, how exactly did they exert that pressure? That's not entirely clear, but we're going to have to find out. I think we have an obligation to find out, and because we can't be a sovereign country under these circumstances, and we're not a sovereign country at this point.
What the fuck? Why am I agreeing with Tucker Carlson? No, Tucker Carlson is agreeing with you. Also, the other side of the story is that he knows you'll agree with him. That's why he's saying this stuff.
And obviously Donald Trump would push right back on that. And you have been, until now really, a huge supporter of his. You wanted him elected, obviously, for a second term. Have you completely fallen out with him over this war then?
Well, I haven't fallen out with him. I mean, I've known him for decades. I've always liked him. And I think anyone who spent time with him likes him. I feel sorry for him, as I do for all slaves. He is not free in this moment at all to do what he thinks is.
That's dude. I mean, he's got fucking bars when he wants to, man. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. He does have I think he literally has like a Muslim hypnosis capability, though. I don't know if I'm just like weak to it, but the way he cooks sometimes, I'm like, God damn it, dude. It's fucking so annoying.
Best for himself or his country.
What do you mean?
No, he's not free. And we learned that yesterday when Donald Trump announced a ceasefire, clearly with relief, and made its terms or most of its terms public. And then that ceasefire ended within 2 hours because Israel intentionally violated the terms by attacking not just southern Lebanon, but the city of Beirut.
So are you saying he's a slave to Benjamin Netanyahu?
So I don't think it's as simple as he's under the control of Netanyahu. But, you know, you could summarize it that way and you wouldn't be totally inaccurate. And again, we know this because the single biggest mistake Trump...
For the record, this take would have been endlessly discussed even like a year ago, right? Is it anti-Semitic? What's up with this anti-Semitism, right? What's up with this anti-Semitism? And even Jay Mershon is saying, how is anti-Semitism a bar? Tucker said he's a slave to Israel. And you know his ass is saying he's a slave to Jews. Here's why this is no longer even in dispute. Maggie Haberman made it so that people understand with her reporting on the New York Times and then the subsequent CBS reporting that came out that said Benjamin Netanyahu called up Donald Trump to tell him that the ceasefire was not happening and that he was going to bomb Lebanon. And then, last but not least, the SNL jokesters making that exact same joke has officially solidified that this position is now not only the majority position, but it's also one that is appropriate to take by liberals. Because if SNL is making that joke, think about the way SNL dealt with like Israel. Think about the way that SNL dealt with Israel and the issue of Israel. They were very rarely speaking out against it. Now Strange says, Netanyahu's brought enormous moral and cultural ignominy down on Israel in large ways and small. It's unimaginable Saturday Night Live would have done a joke like this until very recently. Look.
There is growing confusion over whether Israel being allowed to continue bombing Lebanon was part of the ceasefire with Iran. Ultimately, that decision comes down to the man controlling our military, Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's it. That's the SNL joke. That means that what's his face signed off on this. Lorne Michaels signed off on this. This is peak liberalism. Okay, this is why do we watch SNL or used to watch SNL on SNL Sundays? We used to watch it because we wanted to understand where the moral compass of liberalism was, right? What they were laughing at, what they were looking at, what they were thinking. Since that New York Times reporting for Maggie Haberman that I still suspect J.D. Vance leaked, for the record, because it was just like such deep access. Like someone in that fucking room straight up said everything to Maggie Haberman. And my assumption is there's two characters in that room that are that have most to gain from presenting themselves as being against or being cautious against like waging war with Iran. And it's Marco Rubio and it's J.D. Vance. And it's most likely J.D. Vance, considering that J.D. Vance has already been sending out feelers over and over again. This also corresponds to Donald Trump sending J.D. Vance after Iran demand J.D. Vance go to this meeting. But that reporting was huge, especially from the New York Times. And now SNL's making jokes like this. It's undeniable that Donald Trump is servile to the needs of Israel and is absolutely going along with whatever the fuck Benjamin Netanyahu wants. Now, if we're going to look at why that's the case, I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because it's so far beyond a divergence at this point. It's so far beyond like Israel's ultimate goals here with Iran are totally separate from America, and it's actually harming the United States of America's position around the globe, that it doesn't make sense. It's no longer financial gain. It's no longer these interests coalescing. And now it's just, it has to be something separate. I don't know what it is.
Any American president in my lifetime has made was going to war with Iran in an effort to change its regime. It didn't work. It was obviously a mistake immediately. Trump understood it was a mistake immediately. And he tried to get out of it this week. Okay. And announced we were getting out of it, and the Israelis prevented us from getting out of it. So that's the clearest possible example.
Right.
They didn't allow it, therefore they're in charge.
You will know that people, including the Vice President J.D. Vance, say things like, look, ceasefires are always messy to start with, give it a few days, it'll settle down. Let me move on, because I want to ask you about the British Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was criticised by the US President.
Sir Keir Starmer.
He said, this is not Winston Churchill we're dealing with.
Literally less cucked than Trump, which is unbelievable, because Keir Starmer is double cucked and double stuffed. Keir Starmer is not only cucked by Trump, but if Trump is cucked by Israel, then Keir Starmer is cucked by both. And in this circumstance, he actually is in a better position overall by just simply opposing Trump.
Do you think Keir Starmer has made the right calls in this war?
I don't think Keir Starmer makes any calls about anything. I mean, Keir Starmer's not.
Well,
in
he
charge
did make
of
a call
Britain.
about this.
Obviously, right? Okay. No, Keir Starmer is every bit as enslaved as Donald Trump is. It is illegal. It is a crime for which you can be arrested in Britain right now, criticizing Israel. If you say you're for Palestine action, you can be arrested. A lot of people have been arrested. So, in other words, it is not legal in Britain to criticize another country. And that tells you about Britain's sovereignty.
Okay,
It doesn't have any. Its prime minister has
Oh, she doesn't like that.
no sovereignty.
Mr.
Those are
Carlson,
facts. I have family
that is
there.
not true. And in terms of this war, I'm specifically asking.
Wait, I'm sorry. What is not true about that?
Sorry,
have people not been arrested in Britain for criticizing Israel? They certainly have been. There's videotape of it.
If I may, Palestine Action is a proscribed group. It is banned. Therefore, people have been
Why
arrested.
is it banned?
That is correct.
Why is it banned?
I'm asking you a question specifically about Keir
It's
Starmer and the
banned
decisions
because the
he
Israeli
made
government
about the
wanted
war.
it banned.
And you will know that on
Okay,
February the
but hold on.
28th, if I may, on February the 28th, which was the day the US launched its action, the British Prime Minister told the country that he was not joining with the US because he thought it was illegal and that there was no viable plan. So clearly he made a sovereign decision, which he said was in the interests of the country. And I'm asking you, do you think he made the right call there?
Any government that bans criticism of a foreign government is not sovereign. The British government has banned criticism of Israel, therefore it's not sovereign. It's acting on behalf of another country to the detriment of its own citizens. So let's just be really clear about that.
The British government
Britain
has
is not
not
a sovereign
banned
country.
criticism of the Israeli government.
It certainly has by banning Palestine action, which has nothing to do with Britain at all, or its
God damn it, dude. It's unfucking bearable seeing this guy hit bar for bar the shit that I would be saying in this situation. And I don't even know what his like guiding, I mean, I have an idea of what his guiding principles are, including, but not limited to, potentially anti-Semitic opinions. But it doesn't even fucking matter at this point because he's saying all of the right words in the largest platforms possible and presenting himself in a contentious manner to those who are simply oblivious to the reality that's unfolding, simply oblivious to how large majorities of the public in the Western world see the situation. He is now the voice of reason. Worst guy to put as the voice of reason, by the way, because he has a million other perspectives that are unbelievably damaging and also outright hypocritical, especially in comparison to his assessment on Israel. Because he'll fucking turn around and talk about Israel like this, right? But he also has the exact same ambitions in America. He wants to turn America into an Israel-style ethno-state where he has control over the demographic makeup. So none of the liberals are capable of addressing that hypocrisy because on the one hand, they're too predisposed with like defending business as usual politics, and that requires them to, in a certain way, be oblivious to the actions of the government against critics of Israel. There's also obviously the classic tendency to make it seem as though, America and even Israel to a certain degree as state actors are not behaving in a manner that is inconsistent with international law. They have to normalize it. Like there's always this level of sane washing. Okay? You saying he's anti-Semitic is the same thing media's been doing to you. You would think you'd be more careful throwing that around. We have to stop calling him anti-Semitic with zero evidence. Exactly how is he anti-Semitic? I mean, it's because of what forces he has aligned himself with in the past. That, to me, is impossible not to reckon with, right? Like, Tucker Carlson is the most palatable version. He'll never say it's the Jews, right? He'll never step on that landmine. He's got 30 plus years of experience in mainstream news not to touch that, right? But as far as like his worldview goes, I mean, it's virtually identical to all of these other fucking monsters. Now, what's really funny about this, and Tucker does do this every now and then, and Nick Fuentes has done this as well personally when he's been on Piers Morgan, is that there is a major hypocrisy line that they can hit. Like, for example, if someone were to turn around and tell Tucker Carlson, well, I think you're anti-Semitic because you gave a platform to Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier. Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi. Tucker Carlson can just as easily turn around and say, oh, really? Well, that's interesting because you give a platform to people denying the current Holocaust on a daily basis, right? You give a platform to people who are pro-Israel. You give a platform to people who are currently denying the actual active genocide that's taking place. So as far as like my personal beliefs or my personal disagreements with Nick Fuentes aside, I talk to everybody, right? He can turn around and literally say something like, oh, well, I talked to Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee is a far more repulsive figure. Mike Huckabee is a far more repulsive figure than Nick Fuentes. Mike Huckabee wants to do the Greater Israel Project. What's going on? Right? You can say, I'll talk to Randy Fine. Randy Fine is a far worse person than Nick Fuentes is. Right? Like he could say something like that. You know? And basically cook whoever is advancing this narrative. Because there's truth to it. It is inconsistent. The reality of the matter is Nick Fuentes is a monster, right? For a million different reasons. On top of that, he's anti-Semitic. His anti-Israel critique comes from a place of jealousy almost, where he's like, I'm a fascist. I want to do what Israel's doing, but here in the United States of America for white people, white Christians specifically. But there is virtually no difference between Nick Fuentes and Randy Fine. And as a matter of fact, Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic. Randy Fine is pro-Israel. Their worldview is almost entirely aligned, okay? Almost entirely aligned. Except Randy Fine is also pro-Israel's genocide, and unbelievably Islamophobic, which Nick Fuentes is as well, right? Like, so they literally have the same exact worldview, the same exact opinions, except Nick Fuentes is anti-Israel, Randy Fine is fucking pro-Israel. So from the average person's perspective, you make Nick Fuentes marginally better than Randy Fine in that equation. The average person doesn't look at Randy Fine and go, well, that's a normal guy. That's a normal congressperson. I like what he has to say. You know? They think, holy shit, this guy's fucking insane. We are giving right-wing forces a tremendous amount of leeway as well. What is this? Maybe he changed. People can change, you know? Okay, dude. W. Tucker, maybe he's not a monster as you always present him. I don't know if Tucker Carlson has sincerely had an attitude change on the children that have been slaughtered in Gaza. That could very well be real, okay? But this attitude in this community is exactly what is so dangerous, because it's hard for me to fucking trust Tucker Carlson. It's going to require a lot more for me to turn around and be like, oh, maybe he's changed his attitude in general. Because like what a lot of people are failing to factor in to this equation is like all the other shit that Tucker Carlson believes. Yes, on the issue of Israel, I will admit, I don't know if it's coming from a place of anti-Semitism and mistrust for Jews, whatever, or if it's a sincerely held belief due to what he has seen in Gaza, or the third position, which is both of those things, right? Could very well be any of those three options, okay? Changed on what? Now he believes in healthcare? No. I'm talking about just Israel, man. Calm down. That's the broader point that I'm trying to make, which is that when it comes down to it, the rest of his worldview is repulsive. Like is heinous. He wants to do what Israel is doing, that he's criticizing Israel. He wants to do that in America. He wants to turn America into an Israel-style country, a white demographic majority ethno-state. That is clear. That's what his primary purpose has been for a decade now. The reason why I still say, yeah, and this is also another reason why I don't trust him either. He was in that room. This is right after the Venezuelan operation. I can't believe how hard Tucker is clapping and smiling for Trump after kidnapping Maduro at his White House meeting with oil executives about how they're going to pillage Venezuela. Yeah, that wasn't that long ago, man. I need every Tucker defender in this chat to know this is why minorities don't trust Western leftists. These morons will call a white nationalist based on being on the right side of the easiest issue to criticize and gain credit. Yes. My anger and my resentment also revolves around how easy it is to win favors. Not necessarily because like the audience is stupid, even though there is a little bit of that in it too. But it's because the media environment is designed in such a way where there's such a fucking massive vacuum with previously establishment media figures or currently establishment media figures, the political class. None of them are speaking on this issue with the same conviction that Tucker Carlson is. Okay? It is their fault and their failure that people are far more receptive to assuming that Tucker Carlson has demonstrated real change about his worldview. I'm not even saying that for the record. Okay? I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that Tucker Carlson has had a complete attitude shift. That's why I still say, given his past performance, nothing that he has said thus far and has even implied is what guides me into believing that there is, anti-Semitic opinions in Tucker Carlson's mind. That comes from not his own personal statements about Jews. He doesn't make those statements by design. He will never make those statements until it's like totally permissible to do so. He's a fucking media demon. Okay? This comes from his years and years long advocacy for white supremacist values. He has cribbed and straight up repeated a metric ton of white nationalist sentiment coming from open, avowed neo-Nazis and white supremacists and therefore anti-Semites as well.
Political interests at all. I often criticize Britain, but I love Britain. As I said, I have family there. And I don't think that Britons understand just how badly they've been shafted by the United States. And I am ashamed of that, and I hope that we will do everything we can to rectify it. I know that Keir Starmer understands that. He doesn't seem to care. He doesn't have, again, the control to do anything about it, which is sad to see. The debasement of the country is sad for me to see. But I hope that our next president strikes a far more conciliatory and cooperative tone with Britain and tries to help Britain, because it has a lot of problems that will be very obvious by the next time there's a presidential election in my country.
You have said that you have been called anti-Semitic because of your opposition to the US joining Israel in fighting this war.
Yes.
In March, senior Republican Senator Ted Cruz said, anti-Semitism is being spread by loud voices, the most consequential of whom is Tucker Carlson. Republican Congressman Randy Fine called you the most dangerous anti-Semite.
Yeah, okay. See, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Randy motherfucking Fine saying Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite doesn't mean shit. Yesterday, Tucker Carlson released an interview which featured an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about the Rothschilds. This week, Carlson flanked Trump, J.D. Vance, and Mike Johnson at the RNC. He remains one of the most influential voices in the conservative movement. Yeah, it's like shit like this over the last decade or so that lead me to believe that, yes, he will never personally say anti-Semitic shit, right? Anti-Semitism, like direct anti-Semitism in the way that rank anti-Semitism in the way that you hear from the likes of Nick Fuentes, you will never hear from Tucker Carlson until it is totally permissible to say that stuff. Okay? He's had numerous Holocaust deniers on his show and has not contested their position, right? Like that's all he does this shit all the time. He's just a talented fascist, a room reader who believes in little to nothing, just like every other talented fascist. Yes, he is the most dangerous propagandist. Okay? He is the most dangerous propagandist. He straight up mainstreamed the Great Replacement theory. The Great Replacement theory is now a key fixture in mainstream Republican politics. Okay? Tucker Carlson did that every single night on Fox News. Tucker Carlson played a major role in that because he platformed it every single night on Fox News when he was the most popular broadcast in the country. The most popular news broadcast in the country. Is terrifying. It's insane how easy it is for him to have moral high ground when pressed by a BBC reporter. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because this is the one issue that so many fucking liberals refuse to have conviction on. We think is the easiest one to speak out on, which is true. But there are, I guess, significant setbacks in mainstream outlets that stop them from doing so. And therefore, guys like Tucker Carlson look incredibly convincing.
In America. What do you say to that?
Of course, I'm not an anti-Semite, and that's why they're calling me one. Because my position on Israel has nothing to do with the religion or ethnicity of Israelis. It has everything to do with decisions made by its government that hurt my country. And so in order to avoid having that debate, the fastest and most expedient way to end it is by calling the person trying to raise it a bigot. And I just don't think that works anymore. I would say that what matters in politics and in life is what you do. I think anti-Semitism and racism of all kinds, including anti-white racism, are all immoral and anti-Christian, and I oppose them. You shouldn't judge people on the basis of how they were born, period.
Sure. And you said a moment ago, what matters in politics is what you do. You had far-right commentator Nick Fuentes on your show, who, as you know, said Hitler was really effing cool, Hitler was awesome, Hitler was right, the Holocaust didn't happen, and said on his podcast, in his view, Jewish people are the problem rather than Israel. I know you've said you've had him on because
I disagree with that.
Right. Do you have concerns that broadcasting Nazi-loving, Holocaust-denying guests to your audience and potentially mainstreaming and normalizing those views is an issue?
Look, I've said that I disagreed with Fuentes on those questions. I don't think that you should ever judge or attack people on the basis of their bloodline. I also interviewed Ted Cruz. I tried to interview Randy.
Told you. He's not even fucking entirely incorrect with that statement. The question here is not like, oh, how dare he fucking retort here. The question is, how do we arrive at a position where Tucker Carlson can shelter his like heinous worldview and is going uncontested pretty much, and the only contest coming from BBC actually makes him look like the normal person?
Fine, both of them have.
But let me go back to the Nick Fuentes stuff.
If I may finish my answer.
Sure.
I've interviewed both of them, or tried to interview. Fine, he wouldn't, but I've interviewed Ted Cruz, as you noted, and both of them have defended the genocide in Gaza, the murder of children. And I would say that sending money to a military that murders children is a little bit more significant a moral crime than saying ugly things.
Do you think Fuentes is anti-Semitic? Do you think he is?
It sounded like it to me. I said that to him, and I said I oppose anti-Semitism, which I sincerely do. Right. And by the way, unlike the UK, we have a First Amendment. So if I was an anti-Semite, I guess I would just say so at this point. I don't know why I would lie about it, but I oppose it. And I've opposed it in public consistently for my entire public life.
Can I ask you what you thought when you read Donald Trump's post on Tuesday in which he said,
like, that's it? That's your... the way to cut across Tucker Carlson's commentary is not by being like, oh, you talked to Nick Fuentes. The way to expose the contradictions in Tucker Carlson's worldview is by saying, you don't like Israel. You think Israel's doing a genocide. That's fine. I agree with that. But some of the ethnic majority policies that you are railing against in Israel are identical to the policies that you want to advance in the United States of America. What do you have to say to your critics that complain that you are simply using this issue, this salient issue, as a way to win favors with the broad majority of people, and then simultaneously try to get them to arrive at your conclusions on America's demographic concerns? That's a question that you can only ask Tucker Carlson, though, if you also agree with the fucking universally acknowledged truth that Israel is an apartheid state that is currently doing a fucking genocide. But considering that a lot of these racist ass liberals in mainstream outlets don't say that or can't say that, I don't know which it is at this point, you will never be able to address you will never be able to cut away at Tucker Carlson's worldview. You will never be able to undermine his perspective.
A whole civilization will die tonight.
Has he ever actually advocated for specific policies? All I remember is doing a lot of racial grievance and anti-white racism stuff on Fox. But he always left solutions implied, not stated. Yes, bro. What are you talking about? He's literally said every immigrant that's in this country is a rapist, parasitic force that's destroying the beauty of Western civilization. Yes, that's all he talks about, and that's all he used to talk about. Now he at least has, Israel to talk about. Tucker Carlson has been the number one fan favorite of every single neo-Nazi and Klansman in this country for a decade now, and the reason for why is because he, as they correctly point out, correctly understand, takes these otherwise not so palatable positions that many people hear and go, ooh, gross, that's a little bit too racist for me. And he makes them palatable. Yeah. He'll say things like, how exactly is diversity our strength? You wouldn't want your family to not be able to communicate with one another. So why do you want your military? Like that's a direct quote. I know I have so many in the back of my mind. Okay. Yeah, white genocide is real, says Tucker Carlson. The white nationalist Peter Brimelow, who says the only real Americans are whites, and Tucker agrees. J.D. Vance's close friend Tucker is a white nationalist. Okay, this is from January. This is from January 21st, 2026.
The defining fact of our lives is that whites around the world are being eliminated, and I would like to know why.
The people running the society are anti-white, and they've been able to persuade or intimidate the entire legal system to operate in that anti-white way. Anti-white in this case really means anti-American, because the whites are Americans. The people who signed the Declaration of Independence, that's who Americans are.
Yeah.
Wait, what? You asked him that? Tucker literally told me to my face how much he's changed, and the whole exchange left me feeling slimy. He would lie and say he changed his mind about how race is used. He told me he believes race is used to divide the country to keep people from talking about class and wealth inequality. Well, here we are watching Tucker Carlson only a couple months ago interviewing a fucking white nationalist and openly telling him that no, racial grievances are primary.
Legal system.
Yeah, the chatter didn't fall for it. Okay. He's saying it made him feel slimy because he was like very clearly lying to him, which is why he shouldn't be trusted at all. I'm saying right now how lying is OP. Yeah, chatter challenged him
to operate in that anti-white way. Anti-white in this case really means anti-American, because the whites are Americans. The people who signed the Declaration of Independence, that's who Americans are.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he will always lean back into legacy Americans, for example. Yeah, right-wing anti-Zionists are understandably intent on dismantling Christian Zionism, a core obstacle to their views, moving mainstream in MAGA. But rather than developing real solidarity with Palestinians, it's a lot easier for them to resort to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Rich's new song, by the way, is at the top of the iTunes country music charts and number 2 overall. While dogmatic support for Israel remains dominant on the right, dissenting views are hardly fringe, and I suspect these contradictions will continue to sharpen as isolationism moves more mainstream. This was back in 2024, July 17th, and it certainly has 2 years after. Ben Lorber clocked it. Do you understand? This is also part of the reason why Tucker Carlson will never have a conversation with someone like myself, because I'm very familiar with his background. I'm very familiar with the dangers of his worldview, and I actually oppose it, even if we aesthetically agree, or maybe even totally agree on the issue of Israel, right? There are so many other positions of Tucker Carlson that people who normally care about Palestinians would find to be horrifying, okay? Does he even know you? There's not a single person in the American political right-wing flank especially that doesn't know who the fuck I am at this point.
Horrified by it. And I was, look, as I've said, I don't think that Trump, who I continue to like, I don't think that Trump is in control. I don't think Trump is making these decisions. I know he's not, because I was present in the run-up to this. He's not making these decisions, and I feel sorry for him, as I've said. But more than Trump, anything to do with him or his future, is the effect on my country. Our leaders should not talk like that. They shouldn't. Our conflict is not with another civilization or another religion. It's with governments, at least conceptually, that do things that we don't like that are bad for us, and we have conflict over that. We can never declare war on a civilization. We shouldn't. That's immoral. What does that even mean? Does that include the children in that civilization? Of course it does.
Oh, yeah. Let's start
All
crossing
that
them.
masculinity, all that gender-neutral masculinity, things could get out of hand. So in the spirit of easing tensions and lowering the temperature at CNET a bit, we have no problem admitting, for the record, that Mr. Hiker is one heaping, helping hunk of a man. We're not ashamed to say that at all. We have no problem admitting that. No problem whatsoever.
That's a meme. But the real coverage that he did on me was America Deserved 9/11 comments. He ripped into me pretty hard back then. And even if he doesn't remember that, which is perfectly fine because it was a long time ago and I was nowhere near the prominent media figure I am now, you know, he's definitely familiar with what I do.
You don't buy the argument, look, this is what Donald Trump does. I mean, you've known him for years. This is what Donald Trump does. He uses extreme language to put pressure on to get some sort of concession.
I mean, there are two levels on which to assess this. One, the practical. Second, the moral. As a practical matter, did it work? Is the Strait open this morning? No, it's not. So it didn't work, okay? Its only effect likely is to engender a generational conflict with another civilization, another religion, another part of the world. How is that good for my grandchildren? Probably not. So practically it doesn't work.
Okay.
Morally, the words you use matter, and the more power you have, the more they matter. And so to declare war on a civilization in my name is just not acceptable. It doesn't mean I hate Trump. It means that's disgusting and wrong and hurts my country, and my obligation is to stand up and say so.
You've claimed a couple of times in our conversation that Donald Trump is not in control. Many Democrats, and also some on the right, former Trump allies like Marjorie Taylor Greene, are now calling for the president's removal, with some citing the 25th Amendment, which allows the vice president and the cabinet to declare that a president is no longer able to do the job. Do you want to see him removed?
I want to see the system reformed. Once again, 2 days ago, the president... I mean, him, the president before him, the president before him, the president before him.
This is also bullshit. Here's the difference between me, someone who's fucking honest, and someone like Tucker Carlson who's a little bit of a grifter. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Israel's the reason why America went to war with Iraq, because that's not the case. Was Israel a component in the decision making? Absolutely. That much is clear. We know that for a fact because Benjamin Netanyahu spoke very publicly in front of Congress about how wonderful it would be if America invaded Iraq. The other honest assessment here is that there was one president who told Israel no. There were two presidents that told Israel no, as a matter of fact, at different times. One was Barack Hussein Obama with the JCPOA, and the other was actually Joe Biden the first time in 2021, before October 7, where he called Benjamin Netanyahu, called Israel and told him to cut it out. Israel, subsequently after that call, cut it the fuck out. They were doing another mowing of the lawn operation, and they stopped it. Now, of course, post-October 7, Joe Biden and his deteriorating mental faculties. You mean Iran? You said Iraq? No, Israel with Iraq is different than Israel with Iran. We can make honest assessments here. Didn't Clinton also tell Israel who's the superpower here? Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Tucker Carlson also clocked Israel's blackmail operations with and leaned into the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which there's decent evidence that like Israel may or may not have played a role in at least showing the American side that they had knowledge over the Monica Lewinsky scandal before it was unearthed. George W. Bush refused to allow Israel to attack in 2007 too. Yes, George W. Bush also pushed for elections in Palestine against Israel's wishes. Presidents before Donald Trump actually were, they were super pro-Israel at the end of the day. I mean, so was Barack Obama. Barack Obama did the MOU, $3.8 billion annually for the next 10 years after, right? He was done and he was out of office, and that was a concession that he traded so that he was able to get the JCPOA, which is a ridiculous statement in and of itself, right? Like, what a ridiculous situation that we have to give concessions to a random third party when we're engaging in a multilateral commitment with a foreign adversary of our own. That's fucking bullshit. Yeah. If Israel told us not to invade Iraq, we would have told them to fuck off. That's not the case for Iran. Yes. Great take. Great fucking take. We invaded Iran. We bombed Iran because Israel wanted us to do so. We have not been able to get out of this quagmire because Israel doesn't want us to get out of it. It's that simple. Very different dynamic at this point on Trump 2. Very different dynamic in Trump 2. Murat! Barma! Very different dynamic in Trump 2 as opposed to any other former president. Many former presidents have been urged to bomb Iran, invade Iran. They've said no. It's not just my assessment. John Kerry also said it.
All American presidents since 1963 have done substantially what Israel wanted us to do. And now it's really hurting us. And I've been aware of this for decades, and I haven't said one word about it because it's not worth the fight. But now I see our country, its economy, its understanding of itself, in the process of being destroyed because our leaders, and not just our president, our entire Congress, many of our governors, did the bidding of a foreign power. Right. And so the problem is not simply Trump. The problem is the mechanism of control that allows a country of 9 million to control a country of 350 million. What is that mechanism? I'm not sure I know the answer.
But
we need to find out what that is.
Well, as you know, as Commander-in-Chief, he could have said no to Benjamin Netanyahu. Barack Obama, other presidents have. Joe Biden, Barack Obama.
You're absolutely right. And I made that point. And you're absolutely right, they did. And I wish our president had. But he didn't.
So it's not the system.
And he went into a...
He didn't make that point. He made the opposite point, by the way. He made the opposite point. He said none of the previous presidents have actually said no to Israel either. And I'm trying to figure out why. And then she turned around and tried to say Barack Obama, couldn't even get her to couldn't even mouth the words Barack Obama correctly, but said Joe Biden has said no to Israel, which is true. Both of those are true. There's only one president that has always given everything to everything Israel wanted unconditionally. Many presidents have given Israel a lot more than Israel deserves. So much more. Barack Obama and Joe Biden included, right? Especially Joe Biden post October 7. Donald Trump is the only president that is like rarely ever limited Israel's ambitions. The only time Donald Trump ever did was at the end of the 12-day war.
Well, it is the system, because the last president financed the Gaza genocide. The president before him, same thing.
You've said a couple of times in this interview that you really like Donald Trump. In March, you said you'll always love President Trump, no matter what he says about you. On Thursday, he called you low IQ, a nut job, a fool. Also, he suggested you should see a good psychiatrist. Are you going to continue to love him?
As I've said, I feel sorry for him as I do for all slaves, but I will always like him. I will say Trump is one of the funniest people I've ever met. I feel sorry for him. I think he has some great qualities. I've certainly spent a lot of time with him, and I will always like him. If he called me now, I'd take the call. I don't want anything from him.
Well, he says he says you're always calling him, and he doesn't pick up anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's not true. You can check my phone records, but I'm sure NSA already is. I'm not defensive about it.
What do the splits in the MAGA movement that we see now, former Trump allies like yourself, on the front foot criticizing the president and the action he's taken, what do they mean for the future of MAGA?
I think MAGA as a movement was never clearly defined, probably for a reason. There was no real platform in the Republican convention in 2024. That was, of course, by design. And so I think the movement is whatever Donald Trump says it is. I think that's the definition. I don't know another. He turns 80 in June. So this is not a movement that's going to, persist through the generations, I wouldn't think, since it's based on one man. But the idea that the U.S. government should act in the interest of its own population, or that any government should act in the interest of its own population, is a kind of core tenet of democracy. In fact, that's the definition of democracy. The people rule. And
Hasan, I'm curious, what would you need to see from Tucker Carlson to convince you that his views have genuinely shifted, for him to openly come out and say that the ethno-nationalist, the racial superior, like white nativist, anti-immigrant agenda that he advanced for the last decade or so was actually very damaging, and he was wrong to do it. And that, the tens of thousands of hours of commentary that he pushed in that direction was wrong and should never be brought up, and that he will spend every waking moment going forward criticizing who he was and who still carry the torch of that same white nationalist, white supremacist attitude. As I've showed you, even all the way back in like January of this year, he's still advancing the same fucking bullshit. Right?
And I think that will long outlive all of us, I hope, because it's the only form of government that makes inherent sense.
I wanted to ask you about the Melania Trump press conference, very unusual, where she denied connections to Jeffrey Epstein and said that any claims linking her and him need to end today. What do you think is going on there?
Strictly speaking, I don't know what's going on there. I know the White House communication staff had no idea she was going to say that. So it's one of two possibilities. Either she was reading speculation about her relationship with Epstein on the internet and she was upset and wanted to clear her name, which is totally possible. Or there was something else going on. So the Israeli government has a long and well-documented track record of using sex scandal or the appearance of scandal to force American political leaders into doing its bidding. You hope it wasn't that. But I did notice that within an hour or two after that press conference, a piece came out, I think, in the Daily Beast alleging some connection between Melania Trump and Epstein, which was obviously hurtful to her and embarrassing to the first family. So I don't know if there's any kind of connection, But I do know, once again, this is a fact, that sex scandals are used, probably not just by the Israeli government, probably lots of foreign governments. It's not just the Israelis. I just want to be clear.
I mean, I am going to point out, I probably don't need to because our audience can see and hear for themselves. Pretty much everything that you've said in our conversation, Tucker Carlson, you have put at the door of the Israeli government. Now, to some people, that will be evidence that you are anti-Semitic. You are anti-Jewish.
Oh, I know. I'm very anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish. Well, first of all, the state of Israel does not speak for all Jews at all, despite its claims. It does not. There are many, many.
Dude, this argument is God. Liberals, man. Fucking liberals, dude. This isn't like they literally think that this is a bar. They think like, oh, well, you're anti-Semitic. Israel has said you're anti-Semitic. Who's next? Adolf Hitler? Like, what? Who gives a fuck, dude? What are you talking about? Adolf Hitler said you're anti-Aryan. The fuck are you saying? What the fuck are you saying? Randy Fine said you're anti-Semitic. Randy Fine is somehow an even bigger villain than Tucker Carlson, man. At the end of the day, he's a propagandist. He's a dangerous one. Randy Fine believes every single thing that Tucker Carlson believes. And then on top of that, Randy Fine is pro-Israel and pro-genocide. Okay? So Tucker Carlson is better than Randy Fine, objectively. Because they literally believe every single thing. Okay? They believe the identical shit. Except Tucker Carlson is anti-Israel. Randy Fine is pro-Israel, which makes him worse. That's what's so unbelievable about the modern Republican Party. So when liberals turn around and try to do this shit, it's like they do not realize that they're not actually hitting a line that they think they're hitting. Maybe 10 years ago, this would have been very significant, right? In 2026, this doesn't mean anything. Yeah, Bin Laden says you're Islamophobic. It's like, oh shit, dude, what am I going to do? Yeah. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi said you're Islamophobic for criticisms of ISIS. Oh no. Like, the fuck am I supposed to do? Okay, fine.
Jews, many of whom I know, who don't think the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu speaks for them.
No.
I'm speaking of the government, not religion.
Hold on. Because I wasn't suggesting
Of course
that.
you were suggesting
What
that.
I was suggesting was that a lot of the
I've been in
things
this
that you
business
discussed
longer
today,
than you, and I understand what a slur looks like. And you're attempting to call me an anti-Semite in a passive-aggressive way. Some people would say that. Well, I'm responding to your slur and saying that it's untrue. It does not apply to me. Doubtless there are anti-Semites who don't like Israel. I'm not an anti-Semite. I don't hate Israel. The Israeli government, this is documented, and I saw it personally, steered the United States into a war that hurts the United States and the world. I'm offended by that. I didn't want it, and I'm mad about it now. I have every right to feel that way. That does not make me an anti-Semite, despite your insinuation. And I think it's important that I say that. And by the way, I hope that you run this. I can't control whether or not you air this exchange. I hope that you will, because I think it's important to push back against slurs like that, because they limit our ability to understand what's actually happening. This is not an attack by Jews on the United States. This is Benjamin Netanyahu moving the United States to do something he thinks will benefit him, but that does not benefit us. It's that simple.
Tucker Carlson, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is it accurate to say being called an anti-Semite is a slur and an example of the person is not exhibiting anti-Semitic behavior? I mean, it's a smear. I don't think it's a slur. It's a heinous smear. And every single day that people deploy it, ironically enough, every single day that people deploy it as a heinous smear, it becomes less of a heinous smear. What I mean by that is you've softened the impact of this sentiment when less people care about anti-Semitism. And less people care about anti-Semitism because you keep deploying it against people who are critical of Israel. Oops, she bit off more than she could chew. I feel sorry for him, as I do all slaves. Incredible, brutal truth. Victoria Derbyshire is so frightened of criticizing Israel. Does she quote Randy Fine to make her point? I love how Tucker doesn't allow petty attacks live without a rebuttal. Yeah, everybody fucking loves him. He cooked her. He looked good. He looked great in this video. Okay? What is this? Good luck to Shapiro shaming Americans that are liking this war for Israel. Shapiro, people need to touch grass. Go talk to people that you go to church with. And what you'll find out is most of those people agree with the president. Actually, when you touch grass, as Ben Shapiro suggests, you will find that only 36% of voters approve the war in Iran and that the majority of the country doesn't. He has a plan or doesn't think he has a plan or has explained why we're at war.
And social.
All right. Jeremy Ben-Ami wrote this long effort post about fucking J Street. He's the president of J Street. We're going to look at this. I'll take a look at Adam Johnson's commentary, and then I'll move on to the Pod Johns.